Welcome to the Global Documentary Team. Tonight we have some guests from our team that is around the United States and around the world. We'll be introducing each one at a time and highlighting some questions about what do we all see as progress this year. We're at our 12th month of high focus on the documentary and the movie. We've used a tagline called "It's more than a movie, it's a movement." So we'll also talk about what is the movement on the ground that we've been doing in each of our respective areas. But what I'd like to do is invite anyone that is on here watching to put your name and introduce yourself, tell us where you're from. And we're also asking you to just stop and pause for reflection. We're at our 12th month, wrapping up this year. What is it that you've noticed as progress for this project? What have you noticed as progress for your own self, in your mission, your work, in your own personal growth? What do you feel good about as we wrap up this year? What are your questions about the project? And what might be visions? What do we see might happen next year? What's the impact we're looking for? So as we get into it, please comment in the chat. And I would like to bring our latest team member, our newest team member, on stage. And we have Mija from Chicago. Mija and I met back in November at ISPS USA, and fabulous meeting. You met a number of the team.
I did.
So you just kind of jumped into the project. You heard documentary, movie, movement, and you jumped right in. So you are one of our newest team members. Would you introduce yourself and give us, brief background, and then literally in these short 2 months, what are you already excited about? What are you seeing as progress? So, introduction.
My name is Mija Bradford, and I'm from the Chicagoland area. I had the pleasure of meeting this team at the ISPS conference, and I had a journey of spiritual awakening, and I felt like I was always by myself, or if I shared it too much, somebody may come in with a straitjacket. So when I walked into this conference and hearing you and your team talking about this movie, this documentary, this film, I was extremely intrigued. And we've met a couple of times. I've made some great connections. And even as a therapist here in the Chicagoland area, the information I learned at the conference and information I've learned with the team individually has been brought into the office, talking to people, because I really do believe this is a movement. And the more we talk about it, the more that people will start having hope that, wait, maybe I'm not the only one having this spiritual emergence. And maybe there is people that in the medical field that I can talk to freely and not be ashamed or scared that they may dose me with all this type of medication. I might not get out of it. But pretty much that's what I've seen so far being connected with you, and the rest of the team members. And for me, my background is I've been always in touch with subtle energies. I grew up as a Catholic, studied Christianity, studied Judaism, studied Kabbalah, and but I was always a healer. I always had the ability to help people when they were finding themselves in some type of um, situation that they couldn't find any help in the medical field for. So people would come see me. Really, at first, it was behind the scenes because I was in the financial industry, and it was like out of word of mouth, like, "Oh, you should come talk to this woman that I know named Mija. She can help you." And the more and more I embrace my gifts, the more that I was able to help more people. So that's my story.
And Maja, you have had lived experience, and you also have kind of the African heritage and shamanism that you integrate. Could you just comment on that?
Well, I am of Haitian descent, and African shamanism is something that a lot of people don't talk about or they're unaware of it. And I realize a lot of the things that are in all these different religions are all the same. It's about connecting with the God self, the higher self, your true self. But some people have the ability to connect because it's in their lineage, or they just have they're able to relax enough to sense things from the other spirits and from the other realm, so to speak. And with that information, they're able to heal, they're able to guide, and they're able to connect, so to speak, with their ancestors. And that's something that with the African shamanism that has really helped me a lot, is to connect with my ancestors and to get that information and to understand I am not standing by myself. I'm standing on the shoulders of so many ancestors, and to be able to connect with that. For people who have ever read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is a book that if you get your MBA, that's one of the books that people always talk about. One of the things he talks about in chapter, I think it's chapter 12, because I've read the book so much, he says, pull in people who have crossed over. He's like, make a boardroom, so to speak, and call in. What he was basically saying is call in your ancestors or call in other spirits to give you guides. Now, if that is talked about in a financial book and talking about in a self-help book, why can't we do that with everything? And I think connecting to my African ancestors really has helped me.
So we are glad that you joined our team and
Yeah.
that you're going to bring not just a multicultural perspective, but multi-decades that shows what did you go through as a little girl and how did that wind up in, a lived experience where you were, either misdiagnosed or not treated appropriately from your heritage. You are in the documentary. Yes. And we'll get into that towards the end of the session. So Mija, I'm going to put you in the back room and bring Jen on. So thank you. So I'm bringing Jen on. Many of you know Jen from Not As Crazy As You Think. Let me just get this off here. And Jen you've been to my house a few times. And the big help on that was to actually see team members in person. And together we laid out the sequencing for the docu-series. We made progress on writing up what was happening in the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, all the way up to now. And we see where each of the team members can fit into those decades. What was happening in the medical field, in the psychiatric field, in the narratives that Bob Whitaker reported on so well. So want to kind of link that together and have you introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Jen Gator Siciliano. I'm host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast. And I feel like this summer was really, really productive. I don't know how many people were aware of how much was accomplished. But in terms of the layout, in terms of the ideas, in terms of the chronology, in terms of what's going on decade per decade, to lay it all out like that, it's great because now we can all insert ourselves, right? And I understand that some people continue to add to that Google document, and it's an organic work in progress. I like to think as the whole thing as an organic work in progress. And, when Jenna and I first were talking about everything and what I can lend to it, we were saying, I certainly can give you any and all, anything that you want in terms of recording, in terms of audio, in terms of, things from my podcast itself. So I feel very lucky to have gotten on this team because it has broadened my reach for the podcast. And it's important because so many people that have been on the podcast since I met Janet have really brought it to the next level because we're all talking about the same thing. It is it's a consistent reinforcement, right? This is what we represent. This is what it's about. And I mean, just to name a few: Ben Castello, Mark McCormack, Janet had her own full length podcast. And just recently, I headed over to the University of Delaware at the ISPS conference in October, and we had 6 more people who joined the show, and it's a very strong episode. I'm hoping that it's going to have a transcript / article, uh I guess, attachment to it, on the Mad in America blog. That's in the works right now. We're in discussion on that. And I was, it was kind of approved, and I had just sent it over. So we'll see how that goes. The idea is to work as a unit, to bring this team together, to try to, move forward and kind of lend our influence out there, so that, people, if they see us kind of in some capacity on social media or whatever, in these different areas of influence, if they see us together and we're working as a team, people start really realizing that this is what we're doing. So I think it's at a good stage, and I'm happy to continue to trying to push it forward even further.
So to just bridge from that, so a progress piece is, Jen, we laid out a sequence, and to get a docuseries up, you have to start with a sequence. At the end of tonight, we will actually look at the plan to produce episode 1. So your help this summer, as well as everybody else's, really set the stage for us to start piecing well over 100 videos that have been taken this year, which is another part of the progress. And then I'll just also highlight what I've noticed, especially with your work, and starting to watch, we've been watching a lot of the LinkedIn and Facebook posts, is that we're starting to show a cohesion of team members showing up together from around the country and around the world. So thank you for that podcast. And if you want to put it in the chat, the link to the podcast, it's well worth watching to see what all the team members are doing. So we is our medicine, right? That's another tagline. We is our medicine. So we're going to bring Sean Blackwell on, and Jen will have you back in a moment. So many of you know Sean, and got to get that. Let me just get this here. And Sean is joining us currently from Canada, but as you may know, from Brazil. I had the pleasure of hosting Sean in my home in November, and it was quite the treat to be able to exchange thought and experience, attend some conferences. So that is progress. Again, to be able to host Sean up here in New Jersey was a great treat. And we also got to record some live in person. So Sean, for anyone who might not know you or your current work, please introduce yourself. And then I'm going to ask you to put your own special twist on what do you see as progress that happened more because you were in New Jersey versus, we sort of talked over the year, but all of a sudden you kind of were awakened to what's going on here in New Jersey. So.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, I'm Sean Blackwell. I have a website called bipolarawakenings.com and a YouTube channel that goes back 15 years. It started out as bipolar or waking up, asking the question, am I bipolar or waking up? Because I had my own spiritual breakthrough that got me hospitalized in 1996. All right. So I've been really dedicated to this, for 15 years. And in terms of progress, well, one other thing is that for the last 7 years, I've been really focused on the healing of what most people are medicated for life for, would be something like bipolar disorder, but interpreted as a spiritual emergency and using different somatic therapies that work through the body. It's entirely possible, particularly when people have what we might consider milder disorders, to get some pretty powerful results in a short period of time. And that tends to be the focus of my work these days. Along with visiting New Jersey, I was in Brooklyn and Philadelphia and Dallas working with clients on 10-day retreats where we do, this intensive somatic therapy rooted in what's called holotropic breath work. Okay. So that's my thing. Looking at starting to do some workshops this year, moving in a direction towards training people. What I thought was the progress for me was, Janet and I had a number of conversations. I'd met Calvin, I'd met Josh, I'd done a podcast myself with Josh, and particularly at the ISPS conference, there just came a level of intimacy. So we don't know each other just about the topic of alternative approaches to psychiatry or anything like that, or the spiritual dimension, but almost everybody here on this call, I know about their lives. I know about their families. I know about their divorces, the family challenges and things like that. And, people's struggles and people's particular focus. I think everybody on this call has a particular perspective on the spiritual dimension of disorders and has a particular goal, so everybody's a little bit different. So bringing everybody together to what I think is a warmer relationship, because certainly for me, I've been doing most of this work alone or in quite isolation for 15 years. I've got a few strong contacts, but I've never worked on a regular basis with a group like Janet's put together of many different people with different skills and different interests. And so that's been really great. I'm looking forward to see where everything goes in 94. Okay.
So we'll highlight another piece of progress because Sean, you did attend not only ISPS, but you attended the Rutgers University Medical School conference. Right. We had a few of us there, and I highlight that as huge progress, for the whole arena we're working in, but also for the documentary, because in the documentary, we want to show current events, what is happening, in the United States, in Canada, around the world. And you witnessed a medical school start to present on the differences between spirituality and psychosis. You witnessed psychiatrists speak on there is a difference, and we need to be careful not to to diagnose so quickly. So I want you to highlight that as progress, for the documentary, that we actually were present there and you witnessed what was said at a medical school. What astonished you, what surprised you?
Sure. Well, the main reason I came up from Brazil, the first thing was that I heard that there was this conference on psychosis and spirituality at Rutgers Medical Center, and Dr. Calvin Chatlos, he's a psychiatrist at Rutgers. And so right away I was like, I want to be there, and Janet accommodated, and Janet, Calvin, and I went to this conference. And the first thing was Calvin introduced me to the president of the American Psychiatric Association. And just to physically be there in his presence, Petros Lavanas, yes. It was like, to have that physical contact was symbolically very interesting to me, and he was the chair of that conference. So to have the president of the APA chairing an event that, was almost unheard of prior. And for example, in 2013, when I went and did an alternatives conference called the Crazy Wise Conference in Rotterdam, 2014, I was the only one speaking about spirituality at this alternatives conference. It was considered almost a taboo subject. A lot of people didn't want to touch it. They were afraid of it. And now the president of the APA is chairing a conference on that subject. I think that's remarkable progress. And then the presentations that were given, I thought were quite good. When they did differentiate between spiritual awakening and psychosis, I thought they did a good job. A little bit of what was missing was that gray area that they did talk about, which is in between. And I introduced myself to the presenters, and I told them, I said, I work that blurred line between psychosis and spiritual awakening. And I think that that's really where the future is for more psychiatrists to go, well, hang on, this could break either way. This person could be medicated for life, or we could get them on a healing path. To me, that's the future.
So progress is that a medical school is announcing, promoting, showing the research that many of us are doing in our own areas, and we are going to feature that in our documentary. We have an intention to invite Dr. Petros Lavanis, president of American Psychiatric Association and chairperson of the medical school. We have an intention to invite him into the documentary and speak about what is he looking for in terms of transformation work in the psychiatric world. So, really hoping that he's going to join us in the documentary. So, stay tuned for 2024 to see how we can get that. But any guests can see some of the summaries. We put a summary up on Facebook and LinkedIn about that conference. And then we hosted a roundtable. So maybe before you go, you can just comment that we did a roundtable as another step of progress to make movement happen in New Jersey. You participated in that.
Yeah, organized by Janet and Calvin. We had a roundtable discussion with a number of religious leaders, social leaders, and president of a nearby university, Dale Caldwell. All participated in this roundtable conference, talking about how we can take sort of this perspective, this newfound perspective on spirituality and how it's related to what's being interpreted as disorders into the mainstream, into different topics. Like, for example, this 988 number you were talking about, where instead of calling 911, if someone has a situation of mental distress, they call 988. And getting some training done in that area related to the spiritual dimension of what could be going on.
So great highlight on progress. We'll kind of summarize this towards the end. But So for now, we'll put you in the back room and we're going to welcome Joshua up.
All right, thanks.
So thank you, Sean. And we'll have Joshua. Welcome, Joshua from San Diego.
It's a gorgeous day in San Diego. Oh, it's a gorgeous day to be online. What's up, everybody watching? Thanks for doing this, Janet. This is great.
You're welcome. So many people do know of you and know you, but please still introduce yourself to us in terms of what work you're doing. Why are you in this documentary? You were actually in the early crowd. We met last fall before we really officially got started. And so, you kind of have that history over a year of us just talking about it until we really officially started in January. So give us a briefing on your work, but why have you stayed with us now over a year? What do you see as the progress happening with this documentary to make it a reality?
Oh, it's been beautiful to watch. It's so cool to see how a vision can really manifest into relationships and tangible change. A little introduction about me. Hi, guys. I am Joshua Roberts, born and raised in Cape Town, South Africa, now living in San Diego, California. Through my bipolar 1 experience, I had a complete spiritual awakening, which I completely misnavigated for the first 6 times. 6 involuntary psychiatric hospitalizations. You would have thought I would have learned after the 4th. Nah, it took me 6. 2 arrests, I blew $86,000. But it was a completely spiritual experience. And so now I spend my life fusing the worlds of psyche and spirit, joining psychology and spirituality. So studied psychology, and then I went to seminary in LA to study the world of God, which has enriched my understanding of mental health, and the understanding of mental health has enriched my understanding of God. So it's really been this synergy. And I work with NAMI, my own company, Inspired Mind Mental Health. I work with the County of San Diego here through a nonprofit called Interfaith, training faith leaders on the power of mental health and mental health professionals on the power of faith. So even the County of San Diego sponsors things like this, which I think is fantastic. And I've teamed up with the National Empowerment Center to package neurodiversity gifts, to say that there can be gifts from being wired slightly differently. It's a paradigm shift, and I think we are in the midst of a paradigm shift. And so the progress that I've seen with the documentary and just people coming together has been incredible. The social cohesion, it's kind of like Sean was talking about there. What started as a vision now has this live stream, first off. And some of these streams that we've been on, or maybe not the public ones, but the private ones, are some of the most multinational teams that I've ever seen. Like people from Africa and India and like all over the globe. And that just kind of shows the level of interest in these topics. This is the world of the mind, guys. It's like, who's got a mind out there? Everyone. So the possibilities of the mind, I think, are just a human kind of interest. We got filmmakers interested, artists, psychologists, psychiatrists, lawyers. You know, I think it's really the coming together for this, maybe the next human rights movement. So another thing is just the opportunities that coming together does provide. Like Jen was talking about the podcast and that being spread high up. That's because of these networks that we're building. At that conference, she mentioned, one of the keynote speakers said, you can let your network work for you. Let your net work for you. And I think we're tapping into that synergy. And like Sean met Petros, the president of the APA. It's like all of these little synchronicities are happening. And so I think we're bringing together this mutual vision at conferences and through media that's really showing that, oh, we're onto something, and something big.
So I'm going to tap into a few things that you said. We literally in January started off with 2 official team members. We are now over 42 from around the globe, and it's growing. It could even be double that. I'm trying to keep the roster together, but we are well over 42, and they do cover not just across the United States and Canada, but around the globe. I did not, I hoped, I don't know if I really even fully envisioned that, but it just happened. So there's something very organic, very spiritually driven. So that's a piece of progress. We have grown as a team, and as you said, from all walks of life. And that's what's going to take to put this documentary together, because we do want to cover all those issues: psychiatric rights from a legal perspective, the medical perspective, psychiatrists speaking on what's the history, what were you taught in the 70s and 80s, and how did that change, and where are you now? Lived experience from a variety of scenarios. And yes, Joshua, your experience, taking a long journey through 6-7 events and finally getting it, but welcome. Thank you. Here's a question or comment. You are doing training with faith leaders out in San Diego. And we talked early on with the intention to try to get something going in New Jersey. Now, we are bringing faith leaders together from various cultures and religions to be integrated into the 988. Tell me what you think about that. What does that say to you? That's just starting. We have full intention to integrate spiritual competency in 988 screening, intent to not have everybody funneled off to a hospital, but maybe go to a peer respite, have different. So tell us what you think about that progress, where we are right now.
I think it's huge, and I think it's a sign of something pretty large, how the chasm diverged through the Enlightenment between science and faith. And I think that hasn't really worked out for us, and I see us starting to come back together, that faith is being seen for the value that it has within the world of the mind, within community. And yeah, at one of these county meetings the other day, they were saying that if a person requests a faith-based approach, by law, they have to provide a faith-based approach or connections, or at least in San Diego, like if someone wants that kind of approach. So I think that is going to become more widespread. That contract that teaches faith leaders and mental health professionals has been renewed and is expanding, which just goes to show that this is really working. We literally knocked the numbers out the park. People are so interested in this kind of thing. And to have that differentiation that Sean was talking about, because these things can go dark pretty quick and they can go down these different trajectories. If we can come alongside people as a community, which we should, and incorporate these two fields that were once separated, I think that's the future. So I'm thinking in the next 5 years, mental health is going to look very different.
Let's get into that towards the end too, about the vision. But if you could send me anything about what you said in terms of it's almost the law out in San Diego to integrate faith leaders, because I don't know of that here, and that's what we're looking to influence. And this is part of, it's more than a movie, it's a movement. You know, we started off this year looking to promote and develop a feature movie, Calling God to the Witness Stand. Then it moved into, well, we better get the documentary going first. And then the documentary turned into a docuseries to include all the issues and all the people. And then it turned into a movement. And part of the movement on the ground is to make a difference. We're focusing in New Jersey, but we want to focus around the country and around the world. What's happening local, and how can we impact legislation and inclusion of all those issues? So please send that to me if you have something that we can bridge from West Coast to East Coast. So yeah, thank you for being here. We'll have you back in a little bit, Joshua, and we're going to bring Hillary on. So let's see. So welcome, Hillary from Canada. Hillary, you know, you might remember better than I when we first met, but I look at what we've done together is maintained a very business focus. We both have consulting backgrounds. This kind of project, documentary, movie, movement needs a business focus, a project that has measurable outcomes and just attention to that, right? So you've been a great partner behind the scenes to keep that going. And you probably have one of the best perspectives on there is a business plan to this, even though it doesn't always look like it. So if you would introduce yourself and maybe comment on how you see the progress, how you see the business disciplines to make this happen.
Well, it's an honor to be here, and it has been a blast over the last year working with Janet, both in front of the camera, behind the scenes, because we talked a bit about, everybody's mentioned certain signposts of change. Last week, The Economist put out an article, and it was on the medicalization of mental health. Now, when you start to see that kind of publication talking about what we've been talking about in our sessions, you know that there's a business dynamic, economic dynamic, as much as there is also social and health. So what's been fascinating for me as a business strategist is to watch the emergence, which is a whole different strategy of how organizations, but also projects evolve. And there used to be the time where you'd sit and plan everything, and you document what everything need to be done and what the milestones were and who's going to do what and all of that. And then a wind would blow in. And all the papers that had all that would be tossed up in the air, and you had to start again. Well, emergent strategy is what you did this year in terms of it was starting off with the feature film, and then saying, you know, we went down quite a long road with that, and met each other, and that was the context of us meeting and seeing each other, and Joshua, for an example, what a great gift meeting him was. And then just as children learn, they don't have an experience and then stop and say, now, how do I analyze that? What did I do? What did I learn? They just intuitively then lead to the next experience, which is building on it, and the next experience, which is building on that. That's what you did. And so as we started to converse and the group started to meet and the different players started to come in and the different experts started to be interviewed and all those things that started to happen, it started to a different strategy emerged from all of that research and emerged from all of that. So as from the business side, I applaud you for allowing, because many don't know how to work with emergent strategy. And yet in our dynamic changing world, it's the only way to work in many cases, because you have to be deeply intuitively listening in. You also have to use your three brain system, your head, your heart, and your gut in order to, the gut is a phenomenal part of the brain system in order to figure out what is next and intuitively understand how to mobilize that. So it really is a real thing. And from my vantage point on the team, I have loved being in conversations and listening in around what is the reality of how this dynamic of what we call mental health, and especially in looking at the nature of spiritual emergency, a different lens being put on it. And what it allowed me to do was in my own work. I'm quite a radical systems transformer, and I love working at the edge of new things. And so what I've been doing over this last year is to undertake research under the banner of Taste of Wonderland, which is a process based on Alice in Wonderland, going down the rabbit hole. And in August 12th of this year, we ran 3 Tastes of Wonderland simultaneously, one in Amsterdam, one in Toronto, and Josh ran one in San Diego as part of another event he was doing. All this is giving us warm data and social research on where the breakdowns and the pain points are. But what's critical is it's also giving us new solutions, new dynamic co-created solutions that are going to show us radically different approaches, like what Sean is describing. And there are such a need to be able to offer a range of integrated and beautiful different approaches to how do individuals de-traumatize the experiences that they've had, but also open up and break open their own potential. So, because my own experience with my son is that a lot of his issues have been based on not seeing a place for himself in the world. And then because he didn't find a place in the world, or couldn't see a place for his gifts in the world, he had reactions to that. Those reactions then got medicalized. Then they got medicated. And then he got institutionalized because he couldn't figure out where he fit in the world. So I have a radical mother who is saying enough. There are solutions out there. There are changes possible. There are ways in which we can do this, and we have a global team now. But it's also what I'm also going to applaud you for is grounding it in place, because you're grounding a lot of this work right now in New Jersey. I'm doing the same in Canada. I'm grounding it in a city for real experience, for a community to come together to explore how they can bring about radically different services to support a best life for all. And it's, again, but doing it in a grounded way, but informed by an amazing global team, and informed and inspired by an amazing global team. So it's all weaves in together, and part of what we were looking at originally for where A Taste of Wonderland fit into the original film was it was going to start showcasing what is possible in the future. And so it all fits. It just all fits. And
you're starting to see the puzzle. You're seeing
the puzzle pieces are coming together, and we have to understand where the current reality is in order, and where things are emerging, and where the cracks are, but where the new growth is possible. And then for me, I take that and I leapfrog. So I leapfrog over the barriers, and I go into a place of how do we create this now? And so creating a new dynamic now, from which can come back, seeds can come back into the current system afterwards.
I want to highlight a few pieces what you said, because the grounding this whole project, the documentary, the docuseries, the movie, into the movement in New Jersey, that really just got solidified this fall. Focusing very much on recordings. Let's get this docuseries out. Let's, promote it and get it going. But it really made sense that said, we need to do movement. We need to make a difference in the system. And the progress in New Jersey will be very visible next year. But right now we are having conversations with faith leaders and 988. We are going to a university in New Jersey and establishing a business base sponsored by the president, so that there's, that base established. We are partnering with CSPN New Jersey, Collaborative Support Programs of New Jersey, to see how do we move from 3 peer respites to a peer respite in every county. We believe we can influence that. How do we How do we partner with the different organizations and actually get a standard of care for mental health into the state government legislation? That's where we're touching it. Will we put that in the documentary? Absolutely, but we want to make the difference and then report on it. 1 in the news, 2 in the documentary. So I'm so glad you're picking up on that and establishing, I guess, in Ontario.
Yes, we're looking at Ontario. But the other interesting thing is that as you're doing that, it also helps inform the R&D that I'm doing in terms of if we were to leapfrog over, what would need to happen. It's the and. It's the beautiful story of and. It's not the either or of let's focus on this in this local place. Or should we look into the futuring and the dynamics of what is possible. This initiative includes all of that and everything in between, but in an integrated and very cohesive kind of, because we're weaving, and a number of people who before me have talked about, we are a very different group of people in terms of we all have quite different specialties. We have quite different perspectives, but it's a woven tapestry now that is starting to form in its own, in an energetic tapestry. And one of the things tapestry reminds me of is the Renaissance. And so we are bringing in our own Renaissance in terms of a rebirth and doing it in all of our own different ways, but in an interconnected form.
Interconnected. Let's pick up on that as we bring everybody back in a little bit and talk about the future, what we really believe. So thank you, Hillary. We'll have you back in a moment. We'll bring Dr. Chatlos on as our last guest for this evening. And Dr. Chatlos, it was you and I in the beginning in January, starting off and saying we're making a movie. And you are our first investor. So thank you for putting that investment in. That's actually carried us this year and helped us produce what we've done. You also have been presenting all year round on the spiritual part of mental health, sharing your personal story, coming out of the closet, and have a strong desire, commitment to influence how psychiatry evolves, among many other things. So share your background and give us some briefings on what are you seeing as the progress this year? And then we'll also get into where are we going. So what do you see? We're at our 12-month mark. I think you're mute.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm an addiction and child and adolescent psychiatrist located in New Jersey at Rutgers University. And probably in terms of my response to your question, Janet, really was triggered by Jen's description of the podcast. It is so easy for us to get into a battle between psychiatry and psychiatrists and mental health and alternative ways. And I realized that this year and a half has really allowed me to see from personal experiences what your struggles are, what the spiritual struggle is, how it really does verge on what we're doing in psychiatry. And I actually felt good tonight, Janet, because my role is to be a connection with the psychiatric field, that, like it or not, much of mental health gets driven by that group. We cannot fight them, but I think we can find the openings that you've already mentioned with Dr. Lavonas, with the American Psychiatric Association, because I'm seeing things and hearing things, especially at these conferences, that just challenge years of training. I hear things that I can't explain from my perspective. The other thing I have to share is that the work I do clinically and in trying to work on this project comes from shared experience with having had personal spiritual experiences that really transformed my life, having connections with the mental health system through my family, through my own journeys with mental health and mental disorders. So it does my heart good to see the passion, to see the energy, and to see the emerging ideas. As Hillary says, we have solutions. We may not have the final solutions, but we've got many things that we're seeing work that are not being promoted in the typical mental health field, behavioral health field. So what have we done this year? We have gathered a team. We have made a decision, and New Jersey is already starting to feel the impact. It's a small enough state. It's got some very good qualities. It's got lots of skilled people. And it's a very diverse state in terms of ethnic, religious backgrounds. And I can't tell you, in the last year, I have probably had 10 times more personal conversations about, have you ever had a spiritual experience, and actually get excitement. I get response, I get excitement. And I've become more aware of immediately there's a connection. It doesn't take a whole lot for me to know that there's something that we can connect on that is very important to both of us, to each of us as we share this. So I just can't wait till I can go out in public and ask that question, and 9 out of 10 people will say, hey, yeah, let's talk.
Yes. You know, just for perspective, how many years, how many decades did you keep quiet about your experience and or what you believed, you know, to be some spiritual experiences? How long did you keep quiet to put this year into perspective?
My first experience that happened that had to be kept quiet about probably happened in 1978 and around 1980. So it's been 20, 40 years.
Yes. Yes. And I'm going to tag team on that with you, Dr. Chatlos, because you did a case study of my experience and proclaimed me not bipolar, which is great. I want to get exonerated.
Everybody should know that she's not bipolar. And so this is a definitely good effort.
And, you know, I'm going to just put it out here, and we want to get into it at another time. There are a number of us that were misdiagnosed, and we clearly believe, no, we aren't. And not to answer this yet, because I want to make another point of how do we get our records cleared? How do we get exonerated publicly, you know, and even some ways to our families, because many of us, our families are still labeling us and mistrusting and cautious because we had that label. So I'm not asking you to answer that yet, but we do want to address that. I'm going to announce that, you know, today is my 44-year anniversary. Yes, I was sitting on a couch 44 years ago. And where was that couch, Dr. Chatlos? You know where that couch was. Where was I 44 years ago?
I think that was in a psychiatric unit.
At Rutgers University. Doors were locked. I was 25 in college, and I did have a beautiful spiritual experience that quickly became diagnosed as manic depressive at that point. And so I'm 2 days away from being released. I wanted to get out for Christmas, and I did. How did I get out? I complied, and I acted like a patient and just was quiet, and they let me out. So we're celebrating my anniversary 44 years later. And I too kept it quiet, Calvin, because of the stigma being out in business, you're in as a psychiatrist, and that would make us very vulnerable if we spoke about it over the years. But now we are, and there are more and more and more people who have had these experiences. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to bring it out in the documentary, but also our intention is to get on the news. One last progress piece, if you would comment, you were part of the small group that went up to Centenary University. What is the progress? What is the value of establishing a business base, a partnership base at a university?
I could almost say I was blown away. We have an opportunity with a president at a university that sort of holds our vision, and he's willing to have it be at a place, and that his entire efforts are working toward looking at what he calls post-traumatic growth, but from a spiritual healing perspective. And as he says often, I don't know of many people, if anyone today, that has not had trauma that we're all hurting from. And we're trying to find ways to do it. And we have methods, and having a location, a respectable location with a lot of just incredible resources. I mean, it really is an amazing, I think it'll be like a think tank and a pot for us to bring people together, to bring ideas together and just sort of boil until it comes up.
Yes. So I'm glad that you were there and saw that. It's a small university support. We will be recording at that university for the documentary, and we'll also be doing ground level impact at the counseling center in academia, including equine therapy, because they have 90 horses there and have never used non-riding equine therapy, and also bringing campus ministry. So we're really going to bring the whole system, including outside the university, into the movement on the ground. So that's progress. We end the year, but we're only getting started for next year. So I'm going to bring everyone back and have our conversation amongst the teammates here. If we do have some guests in the background, this would be great to have some questions and invitation for a conversation with our speakers. But to kick it off, why don't we have some of the speakers comment, and maybe Mija, if you want to comment, because this is like you just got a whole head full of thought and content that maybe you are not fully familiar with. What's your take on what you just heard from teammates that have been with us for a year or more?
This is long overdue, and I'm so excited to be part of something like this. As you guys shared your stories, I wish something like this was here around 1991. Like, that's when I had my beautiful spiritual awakening process in high school. I think hearing, especially from people from different backgrounds, on how they're able to help, it's really exciting to see that this is coming not just from one aspect, but it's coming from different aspects. We have mothers here, a mother here who's talking about their child. We have someone who's talking about their personal experience. We have someone from the medical field. This is a great unit of people trying to make a movement. So I'm really excited about what I'm participating in, and to see what we're going to go through together as we make this come together.
Excellent. Now this is a good orientation, right? Because now you caught up on what's happening. I'm going to ask the team to comment on this. You said you wish you had this in 1991. You were in high school and you had spiritual experiences, and without going too much in detail, it probably wasn't fully understood. We know teenagers, we have a very clear intent to include the challenges teenagers and the young 20-somethings are going through. Let's hear some comments on, how do we one, we want to engage the younger generation into the documentary, but what are some of your thoughts, concerns on caring for the younger generation? I know, Dr. Chatlos, you care for adolescent groups. Who would like to weigh in on where we need to care for, include the younger generation, because they're going through? Yes, Hillary.
Well, having spent the last 6 weeks with my 5-year-old and 8-year-old grandchildren, and I know Josh has a very strong connection to young children as well, I have to say that I'm also very, very motivated to work in the prevention area. And what that means is allowing kids who have a very different DNA, they're very different DNA now, and they are activating that DNA in fascinating ways, which could very easily lead them into a mental health system. And I think that we have an opportunity right now to be able to speak out around what are the different support systems needed for children who do express at these young ages their genius. And for many have been I know my own son shut down in his learning experience, which in turn created other dynamics. But how do we support, even if we may not be able to change school systems right now, but what can we do as parents, grandparents, in community to be able to provide the safe space for these kids to express who they truly are, and to show us what are the types of environments, tools, and other experiences they need to have, so that we actually can take that and start to then escalate that into into older generations, in versions that actually make sense. Because I believe these kids are holding enormous knowledge and wisdom in terms of how we need to approach this in different ways.
Excellent. Let's build on that. Other comments and passion about attending to the younger generations and trying to help prevent them from going, into the trap of a mental health system where they're not understood. I have full intention to get them into the documentary. Sean and Mija. I think you're still mute, Sean. Yeah, all of you can
okay,
get
got
yourself
it.
off of mute. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me, in talking to people with bipolar disorder, or diagnosed that way anyways, that I'm talking to a lot of people who seem to have a lot more emotional empathy than an older generation. A lot of artists, musicians, actors, dancers, people like this, not a whole lot of engineers and accountants. And I think when you look at the younger generations, there is sort of a greater emotional sensitivity, but we're not giving them any tools in how to deal with their emotions particularly well. I think there needs to be sort of an emotional hygiene sort of program for people, so that they can release emotions that they are literally absorbing from the people around them, and in relationships that are a little bit demanding and challenging, and there's techniques for that, but they're largely not used. Everything we do in psychology, for example, is very intellectual. You talk about how you're feeling angry. You don't, so it's all intellectualized, and I think we can get a little bit more primal, and that could be very helpful for a more emotionally sensitive generation.
Aisha.
I think the younger generation kind of got it. They're like, I'm here and hear me roar. They, as you can, I don't know if you guys are aware of how they're even enforcing that people use certain pronouns. That's part of their spiritual awakening process. If you were to think about whatever is a higher power, it's not male or female, it's pansexual, it's all of this. All of these words, these pronouns are really forced by the younger generations, and they are taking a stand. I'm seeing that, but it also comes into social economic background, comes into play. So people who have more they're more affluent, they're able to explore things a little bit more than people who are in lower economics for younger kids. That's what I've seen in the Chicagoland area. And I think we can learn so much from them because they are like, something doesn't sit right. No, I'm not going to take this medication. Or they take the medication just to help them with their grades so they can get past whatever needs to be passed. So they know how to work the system. That's what I've been seeing with a lot of the teenagers that I see as clients, that they know how to work the system so they don't fall into hospital care.
Mm.
And they use a lot of TikTok psychology. Like, I'm shocked at how the kids will come and tell me, oh, I found this on TikTok and this is what they told me I need to do. And I'm like, oh, okay. So for us to probably get in contact with them, we're going to have to use their resources, their avenues, which is TikTok, Instagram, and they're not on Facebook.
Right, for sure. To operationalize a tactic we're working with, tomorrow we will have one of our 25-year-olds team members on, and we are looking to collect a group of 20-somethings to get that group together and talk, and pretty much all of them have lived experience of how can they help those that come after them, the teenagers. How can that group start to help? Because they kind of just went through that passage and got caught. So we do have a full intention to have the 20-somethings on, and we will start tomorrow with Marlena. Any other comments on the younger generation to attend to, and specifically around the documentary? And then we're starting to turn into the last half hour. I'm going to focus on where do we go from here. So any other comments on the younger? Yes, Dr. Chatlos.
Yeah, I hate to be a downer after listening to Mija talk about the young people. I'm involved in overseeing the mental health services for the young people in the state of New Jersey. So I get a chance to look behind the scenes. And I am seeing such incredible pain and trauma that we don't know how to deal with. And the way the system is set up is they just get deeper and deeper and deeper into the system without finding the ways to, and I guess Sean is one of the ones to talk to, that we've got to get right in there. We've got to wrestle with the demons. We've got to look at the terrible impact that minor traumas sometimes may have on a 6-year-old. We may think it has to be something horrible, but it doesn't. Young children are just so affected by the giants that they live with in the world, and what may seem small to us is huge to them. That's why I think, Janet, if there's some way in the documentary, and I think Centenary University is really a key, that we need to really learn how to heal trauma, the trauma, and not the severe trauma, but the trauma of life, just the way the culture is designed, the subtle prejudices, the systemic racism, I get hurt, so I'm going to hurt you. The vengefulness, the attempt to get back at people rather than open up and cooperate and work together.
I would just like to just add to that, in terms of a project that I'm working on right now called 10 Million Kids, is actually looking for children to help us understand how to deal with trauma. And because they actually know how to transmute it. If they are given the space and the encouragement, they can actually teach us. And the other thing I want to say about teenagers is that they are at their prime of risk taking. And what we do know is that that we as a civilization cannot evolve without teenagers taking risk. Because if they don't take the risks, then we don't, as a civilization, as they grow, take risks. So we have knowledge about these generations that we're not tapping into when it comes to really beautiful. And I would also say that children can help us joyfully deal with trauma, not go into the darkness and the depth and the crap. They can help us move through trauma with joy. And if we can figure that out, holy cow, what an amazing opportunity we have to bring that kind of knowledge into working with individuals that did not have that opportunity when they were 6 to release.
Yes. Yes, Jen.
Yeah, I just want to hop in here for a moment because I'm a middle school teacher in public school. So, one of the things that we're trying to do is change the paradigm in some capacity, right? Bring this new level to it. But the paradigm is in the system and it's very rigid. And I've been warned, even with my podcast, like, you're going against the system. And I'm like, they're like, we subscribe to this system. And I'm like, I know, but, I am a person with lived experience and blah, blah, blah. And, the thing is, one of the things that a lot of young people deal with is this sense of when they do struggle and they end up in the system, there's this overriding authority that's still telling them chemical imbalance, still telling them, there's no way to heal. You're going to be like this for the rest of your life. They're written off and they're thrown away that young. So I feel overall, everything that you're saying is beautiful. Everyone's input is important here because I see like this newness, but I also know what's going on is so outdated and they're still holding on to it because that's how education works. It really moves slow. They're not fast to take on new things. Especially, I mean, look, the World Health Organization just came out with this, condemning of the biomedical model on many, many levels. And like, that's not even being addressed in the school systems. So I just, I just hope that we can keep moving forward because I do believe that these alternatives can be pushed in more and more and more. And if this like rigidity could be lessened a little bit in terms of lifelong labels, in terms of, lifelong medication, this convincing the child that there's something wrong with your brain, this is still going on. We're like on the cusp here. We're on the edge, right? We're trying to change the language, but that language is still really, really instilled on every level to the point that teachers will get in trouble if they don't, if you see a child talking about self-harm, you better, talk to that administrator. Otherwise you will, you can lose your job.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there too. Just highlighting it here is helpful. We will get into that again in the documentary. There's so many topics to cover. Trauma will be addressed because it does cover a wide variety of issues that connect to this. But the younger generation, the system, you raised the topic of chemical imbalance. I would hope by now people realize that narrative is not correct, but if we go out and ask the general population on the street, most people would think that it is still the truth, the narrative. What we want to do in the documentary is change the narrative, get some of the clarity out on the research and start to inform. We want to get into the news so mainstream media can start to do some of the education and informing. Any other comments on younger generation? I picked up somewhere that, I don't know if it was the younger generation maybe, that said they actually, some population like the diagnosis because then they can focus on it. Like it named something. Has anybody picked up on that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. So it's kind of, yeah, I don't know if there's anything to say about it. Yes, Josh.
Yeah, I'd love to redeem these terms that we use, like bipolar and like schizophrenia. What if these things weren't seen as derogatory, but they were seen as neurodiverse gifts?
Right.
And so it's like there were derogatory terms used in the past that now have become cool. Like I think maybe instead of trying to change the whole language system, we can opt it from the inside. We can co-opt it from the inside like a Trojan horse.
Yeah. I think that's honestly the way to go because TikTok you mentioned, right? One of the big things is finding your own identification with a label. And there's a softening of the anxiety when you have this sense of, oh, I know what it is now, right? But the thing is, my lifelong label, okay, being told that I was, you know, there's something really wrong with you. I started saying, no, 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 no. Okay, yes, if you look at the DSM list, that kind of describes me, but I'm owning it and I'm celebrating it, and it is not pathologized. We have to depathologize with the kids, and that's where you can get to the change because it's true. These things are really highly descriptive, and sometimes they hit it right on.
Well, the paradigm shift that we've been talking about through the Wonderland process is all about taking those very same symptoms or indicators or whatever and saying, rather than pathologizing, they're evolutionary markers. And they are indicating the nature of the evolution that we're in right now, and that these are not derogatory experiences or processes or their abilities. And as Josh talks about, the neurodiverse abilities. But they're also, I do believe, they are markers for how we are evolving. And as AI comes in and as all the other technology comes in, there's going to be a massive exploration of what does it mean to be human. And as we start to really get into what does it mean to be human, we're going to start seeing that the individuals with these labels and with the pathology can in fact be the reframing as being the evolutionary leaders and pioneers. And what does well-being mean when you are sitting in that realm is very different than what we deem to be well-being today.
Let's take that and bridge into our last 20 minutes here. We are at the end of the year, but we're about to start the beginning of a new year. And part of tonight was about let's lay out what can we expect to happen in 2024? What do we hope to happen? What is in our business plan to make happen in the documentary, the movie, the movement? And so let's even hear from each of the guests, and it could even be repeated of what we've said before, but let's focus on what do we believe, want, hope to, or working for to happen next year. And you can focus on your own business area and then also what you hope to happen from this documentary. I'm going to start with, we have a new producer, Brian Nitto, and he is producer director. He has taken over this project in the last few months. Amazing work, pro bono, just really sunk his whole mind, heart, body into it for the chance to do it. We will put him on a retainer next year. We will be working with investors, philanthropists. We are doing that now. We will put out a document in January of helping us find some investors and philanthropists. But Brian Nitto is in New Jersey, experienced with television and film. He will position us to present this to Netflix. So we have at least one place that we know it will be presented and what will be presented. The second landing spot is we are looking to produce episode 1 of a 3-part series in the first quarter. We have most of the recordings done. We will add some new recordings. And we will partner with Centenary University, the film school, to do some of that recording as well. So first quarter, we're looking to have episode 1. Many people have told us some documentaries take 5 years. Well, I'm still saying we're going to leverage the last 44 years of prep, and in 1 quarter we can produce. Anyone that wants to help us, we're putting the whole sequence, piecing stories together. We will be focusing on that in January. So that's the first thing I'm going to shout out, as that is our target for next year. So let's just hear visions of what you want to happen, see happen, can imagine happening.
We're going to have a almost front page story next year.
Mm.
I don't know what it will be about. It will definitely have some connection with spirituality, but I think we're getting the team, we're getting the ideas, we're getting some solutions to a point where it needs to break way out in the public and have people say, oh, what is this? Let's take another look.
Mm. I'm big on getting this out in the news, and I absolutely believe there's no reason why we will not be picked up first on local news and then across the country and then around the world. Others pick up on that. Joshua.
Yeah, when I was in seminary before a lot of this happened, the president of the seminary, who's well respected in science, said that we're going to see a paradigm shift in our lifetime on the magnitude of Galileo's. And it's going to happen in the realm of consciousness, mental health. I think we could be the canaries in the coal mine, like Hillary says, that ushers in this new way of understanding the mind. And so we're talking about big ships changing the big system. They take a while to steer. I think we should do that, but it's going to take a while. I think with grassroots mental health organizations that start in your neighborhood, through the peer support movement, through media, through the creation of media, I think that's the way to start to change the paradigm now. And so I just took a course on Maya animation, which is what Disney uses to animate stuff. Like, we can really get these ideas out there in some powerful ways. So what we envision at Inspire Mind Mental Health is bringing neurodiversity gifts into the mental health clubhouses, into peer support specialist trainings, colleges, churches, and really changing the paradigm in that sort of way. And the peer support movement is where people with this lived experience can build medical insurance for coming alongside other people. And so we can create mental health church organizations, ministries where they're getting paid, they're self-sustained financially. And so Neurodiversity Gifts is already released as a paid training. And the next seed project that we've started is called Aslan's Way, which is a Jesus-lit mystical mental health path, where we really fuse mystical wisdom that is ancient with cutting-edge psychology. So I think we could bring something like that into our local communities through a version of soteria houses, where people can find true meaning and purpose and community, and we can start to move towards a more ecosystemic model rather than this individualistic capitalist model. So that's what I envision for the future. Let's bring it.
Yes, I'm going to jump on the peer support because that we really do want to make an impact on that in New Jersey to get a peer respite in each county. But I'm going to connect it to another conference where I was hearing how the work shortage for mental health workers is not keeping pace with the need. And so now the people are saying, what are we going to do? We're in trouble. And I'm sitting in the back saying, let's get peer support out there. Let's start employing them. They're there. It wasn't even brought into the conversation. So I want to bridge that. If there's concern over workforce for mental health workers, and we have peer support, which works even better in certain situations, I want to see that come alive and employ a whole lot of people with lived experience. And wow, what a great impact for younger people as well to help that. What else do you want to see, hope to see, imagine?
Well, I want to pull up on what you were just saying, Janet, and because what I want to see next year is, and I think as we start to bring these new centers, spaces, facilities, I hate to use the word, we have to find a new word for them, but into community, where I want to see at least one Story Living Studio, which is a place where you can bring where we have so many different realms of support for individuals to discover their genius. And we say genie and us as in brackets. So because it's the genie of all of us. And we work very much with the fact that genius is really what we're trying to unlock. So what I would love to just sort of to finish this off is the fact that I don't think we want to talk about peer support, because I think that's old school. I think we want to talk about this new amazing series of professionals who are going to design new professions, who are going to design new careers, who are going to design new ways of operating. I think that this is where we've got the most incredible opportunity to be able to design a whole new series of, but with from individuals who have evolved from peer support into the new dynamic workforce, play force, force that's going to change the way that we approach best life for all.
New force. The new force. Others, what do you see? What do you want to see?
Can I step up and just say, building on what Josh was saying about a new paradigm, and even Hillary, I've read in the alternative blogs like Mad in America so much about peer support, but then I was always thinking to myself, why isn't anybody ever talking about like professionals that really know what the fuck they're doing, because they're working from an entirely different paradigm, and so my vision for next year is to start to take a step towards doing developmental workshops to train people, to get them to understand what I'm doing from a new paradigm, and hopefully even to start training them in what I'm doing in a way that they can safely help people that they love, or people can help themselves if they've been diagnosed, this sort of thing. And part of that workshop is in explaining how, as a society, we do move from paradigm to paradigm. And it's not necessarily that the old psychiatric paradigm is just wrong, garbage, it's a big mistake. No, there's a reason that it was there. There's a reason why it developed, and it still has gifts to give, our society, but that there is an evolution taking place, and an evolution of consciousness, So that's my goal for next year, and I'm hoping to create some sense of community around that, which I've never been particularly good at until now, full disclosure.
Whoa.
You guys are my first community. Community is anonymous. I'm not so good with community.
John, when we first met, you said, I really don't play well with others in a sandbox.
I don't play well with others. I take their toys, I break them.
And you've learned that this collaborative team stuff is not so bad. You learned that in New Jersey.
Provided there's alcohol, it can work.
Yeah. We're going to edit you. I'm going to add another topic.
For people with no sense of humor out there, that was a joke. Yeah. Remember jokes? Jokes were something we did in the 90s.
Part of the old paradigm.
2024, I envision a very close, solid collaborative with a law firm in New Jersey. I want a law firm to adopt us, one who has resources and passion about mental health law, psych rights, accountability, to adhere to the psychiatric rights that are there on the books to help us influence. I've been wishing that for many years. So I'm just going to put that out there, that is established. We have a law firm, if not more, lining up to be our partner and help us write the script for the movie and influence the documentary. So that's very tangible. Looking for that. Mija.
For 2024, what I envision is to partner with more psychiatric people, from therapists, psychologists, and also ketamine centers that we have in the Chicagoland area. What is happening is, after they have their ketamine experience, or if someone went to Costa Rica, they don't have to have ayahuasca experience. They don't have anyone that can walk them through that 3-month transition. So that's what I have been trying to partner with. So I've been reaching out to a lot of different practices about that, and also letting them know what I do, and from both a spiritual perspective and from a clinical perspective. If they have clients who have been depressed for a long time, or they are being diagnosed with bipolar or even possibly DID, to help them find a way to integrate so they can live on a day-to-day basis. This doesn't have to be a diagnosis that shuts you down and you can't function. This is actually a calling, and let's see what we can do about it. So that's what I'm envisioning for 2024, and kind of just partnering with more people about that.
Excellent. And I envision you flying into New Jersey to record you live and in person. So we'll look for that.
Janet, doesn't Centenary University have a PhD program?
We'll have to hook Mija up and see how we can get her over here. into
Yes.
Centenary.
Yes, I would love to hear more about that. Thank you.
I'm going to repeat the things we said earlier. I am very, very clear, boots on the ground, keep working on influencing the 988 rollout. It will be in its second year next year. I want to have it headlined in New Jersey that we have clergy, somehow connected and clergy trained. I want to really build on, Joshua, what you're doing out in San Diego, and have more training and more awareness, prepare religious leaders. I want to see spiritual competency as part of the training. We're getting away with saying we do cultural competency, but I'm just not so sure how much of that is done, but definitely the spiritual competency. And I have a vision that one state hospital in New Jersey can start modeling the integration of holistic and spiritual tools in a similar way that some rehab organizations have, or they're just around. It's available. When I was in the hospital, I taught Tai Chi to my co-patients. Not hard, not expensive. There is a way to integrate on one hospital floor in the state of New Jersey. Any other visions? Visions, hopes, dreams for your own business, your own work, or for the documentary? We good to go? Jen, I vision that you do a podcast with Petrus Lavanas, the president of the American Psychiatric Association.
Oh boy.
That's a great idea.
Dr. Chatlos, you have to train me for that one.
No.
No.
You the way you handled the podcast with me, seriously, we could get him to pay attention to something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I would definitely give him respect. Hopefully the fact that he's out there as a voice amongst other alternative seekers, it shows that there's hope for the APA right now. The person in charge is willing to keep his ears open. So I think that's great.
You're an amazing interviewer. You
Yes.
are an amazing interviewer, and you also do your homework. And when you come into an interview, you have done your homework. You have done your research. You're coming in fully loaded with not assumptions or perspectives or judgments. You're coming in to seek to understand. And
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I think that's what all you need for that interview.
Yeah.
You're our Baba Wawa.
Practically, Dr. Chatlos, between you and I, we will put Jen's podcast in the vicinity of Petrus and his executive assistant. So yeah, that just popped in my head. Why not? We can make that happen, and then maybe get on the news together.
Yeah,
we transform.
Lovely.
And support. We do like to close on time. We have just 2 or 3 more minutes. Is there any closing statement, anything that anyone would like to say from being a part of this year-end business team? And maybe we'll even get you could say one word, a phrase. What was it like to be here, ending the year together? Josh, I'm going to have you go first.
Then I'm going to use 2 R's that were said back in the chat, and that's renaissance and rebirth. Come on, 2024. Bring on the renaissance and the rebirth. So thanks for fostering that, Janet, and all of you guys.
Excellent. Hillary, what would you like to say of being part of this? We did a year-end together.
Cherishment. Feeling really cherished.
Excellent. Thank you. Jen?
I would just I was a little distracted by my cat jumping all over the place. So are we doing a one-word thing?
No, it's up to you. Just how do you feel about being here, year end?
I just I'm actually really excited. I feel like I wish I could do this full time. And it just fuels every part of me when I'm around people like all of you, because this is the vision that I had many, 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 many years back, when I thought that this would only honestly be arriving when I died. I didn't think it would happen in this lifetime. So I feel very, very thankful to each and every one of you.
I'll add on to that, Jen. I find that when I'm with this group, and I felt it at ISPS, I feel great.
Yeah.
I am trying to find a word for it, but it is friendship, but it's more than friendship. It's a commitment, it's a passion, it's an excitement. I look forward to it. I am just grateful. There's my word.
Yes.
Grateful to
Grateful.
each one of you and the part you've put into this.
We've come a long way, Dr. Calvin, since January.
It's been an exciting journey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sean, did you get to say something?
Yeah, I'll go with turbocharged. You know, meeting all you guys, it's the same. I think, Jen, you used the word fueled. You guys fuel my fire.
Who's this Marlena Kolachenska sending us messages?
She's calling us the dream team. I love it.
I love it. She's a wonderful artist.
Yeah, and
come
I hope
and
to
join us
in New Jersey again.
Marlena is a speaker tomorrow at 1:00. So she will be on with a number of others: Sarah Velez, Brett Warshevsky, Laura Lee Scott. So we have a whole crew tomorrow, but Marlena will be on tomorrow. Yes. So thank you,
as
Marlena.
The newest member.
What's that?
As the newest member, I feel connected. I feel like I found a village. Like I found home. I do. I really do. I feel grateful. I really do. Yeah.
I am blessed. I can use all of your words. I have been reignited. Maybe similar, Calvin, you know, all of us. Working at home by myself, I start to like fall asleep on myself. And I'm like, I'm charged again. Thank you. We will do something in the first quarter and invite other team members to speak, but you'll get the recording of this and you'll get tomorrow's recording so you meet the other team members. Thank you for the audience who has stepped in here and visited with us. And we'll see you soon. Blessings. Thank you.
Blessings, you guys. Much love.
Okay, until next time.
All right.
Bye, guys. You.